Isn't he Mexican?
Colombian.
He calls himself American.
What is this?
Anchor Baby.
And in this corner, it's the American Anchor Baby.
Daddy's home.
That's an offensive term. People find that hurtful.
You mean it's not politically correct? Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
You know, he's an anchor baby in Canada.
Tell him we still rolling with Trump, too.
Anchor baby, the whole thing sounds horrific. You're just making it sound like immigrants are these horrific, greedy people.
Ustedes pueden aceptar mi negocio o aceptar las consecuencias. Plata o plomo.
So you would be considered white, in my opinion.
You the blackest one in this room.
I think so.
And what happened was his mama got pregnant on the other side of the border, and then a few hours before, just before it was time for him to pop out, she jumped across the border and let him fall on America's soil. So he became the anchor baby. They don't call him the anchor baby for nothing. Amazing.
We like this anchor baby, right?
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in early today. I'm the American Anchor Baby. This is my show. You know, I was wondering if I should have even done the intro there. It's going to be a short one today. But I like that Trump says he's an anchor baby from Canada. I got the Canada on right now. You know, I grew up for a few years there. I grew up in the Commonwealth. You know, that's why, if you tuned into yesterday's show, that's why I say things like, I graduated from grade 11. Because that's like someone in my comments informed me, it's just how people in the Commonwealth speak. The Commonwealth. The nations that the British Empire birthed. Gave birth to? Whatever. Anchor baby. And this anchor baby is in this new world. Sounded like an immigrant. I come to the new world. So we're doing the show early for everybody who's probably missing it right now, waiting for 12. They'll just have to rewind, no problem. Hear the podcast afterwards. If you guys don't know, I have a podcast on Spotify. You can podcast my show. You'll definitely find it at americananchorbaby.substack.com. Like I said, for those that are going to miss it, they'll rewind at 12 once they join in. I'll inform them of tomorrow's show. I only have a few minutes. I only have a little while with you today. I may not even take calls. In fact, just some things I've been pondering on after watching a little bit of the primaries. I watched the whole thing with Trump and Tucker. And just some things that I'm pondering on, I guess, a little bit. Some things I've been reading. Some things that you might find a little interesting in the little time I have with you today. The reason being, which I haven't explained, is we have some fallen state stuff cooking for you guys. It's going to be good. So I'll be helping the fallen state today. I'll probably be getting off around 12:15. So no worries on today's show. We're going to get into it here. Some of what I've been thinking of about the world that we live in and how it's been shaped and what I've come to, I guess, sort of understand a little bit more. Always remember that it's just kind of things where I'm thinking of and talking about. You know what I've said before about history and all that, and how we can't really know. But it's that nature of the victor writing history and all that shapes the world we're in, and it's kind of a little bit of what I've been thinking about. Okay, so you might find it halfway interesting, but anyways. Primaries, you heard about that, obviously. The GOP primaries were held. 8 people on the stage debating, vying for that primary spot to be the nominee, the Republican nominee for the president, right? It's a big deal. It's happening. 2024 is upon us. And so Trump wasn't there. Trump was doing that interview he did with Tucker. They aired it yesterday, right before the GOP primaries debate went live. 225 million views overnight. The polls say, if you believe the polls, that Trump's out of control. We know this. People polling at what he says are mere percents, 1-2% compared to his just out of control monopoly, if you will, of the polls, or whatever. And so people wondering, why wasn't Trump there? You can watch it yourself, Tucker Carlson and Trump. It was nice, interesting to just let him speak on what he's thinking about lately in the spirit of, what's it called? Posterity and just reporting here. Let me just, show you that moment since I remember where it is in yesterday's episode with Tucker. Just to set this all up. Okay. Boom. Now if we could just get Twitter. Come on, Elon. Elon's always doing this to me. There you go. Elon's always doing this to me. You can follow me on Twitter. That's twitter.com or x.com/Gorgonzola, GORGONZHOLA.
Mr. President, thanks for joining
me. Frankly, they...
Here's the debate. And I get in the moment where he's talking about why he didn't show, not the debate, the interview with Tucker and why he didn't show up at the GOP primaries.
They were backing Ron DeSanctimonious like crazy, and now they've given up on him. I mean, it's a lost cause.
Oh, hold on.
It's work that isn't particularly friendly to me. Should I be doing? And I'm saying, and see the polls have come out.
Okay, right here.
Fox News debate tonight in Milwaukee.
Well, a lot of people have been asking me that.
Well,
and many people said you shouldn't do them, but you see the polls have come out, and I'm leading by 50 and 60 points. And, some of them are at 1 and 0 and 2. And I'm saying, do I sit there for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it's going to be, and get harassed by people that shouldn't even be running for president? Should I be doing that? And a network that isn't particularly friendly to me, frankly. They were backing Ron DeSanctimonious like crazy, and now they've given up on him. I mean, it's a lost cause. It's reminded me very much of 2016. In 2016, I went through the same stuff and had to fight them all the way, and then they became very friendly after I won, or just about when I was winning. But I just felt it would be more appropriate not to do the debate. I don't think it's right to do it. If you're leading by 50, 60, I have one poll, I'm leading by 70 points, and I'm saying, why am I doing it? And I'm going to have 8 people, 10 people, whoever made the debate, I don't know how many it is, but I'm going to have all these people screaming at me, shouting questions at me, all of which I love answering, I love doing, but it doesn't make sense to do them. So I've taken a pass, as you probably noticed.
Fair enough, Mr. President. You can understand that. Just for a little posterity here, get us in the mood here, what we're talking about a little bit, the debates and all that. And it's just strategic. I mean, it makes sense to me. You're winning all that. All you're going to do is maybe hurt yourself a little because they're going to be geared against you. The president knows this. They're going to be going after him. When he's already winning, it's like, in a battle, you've already struck mortal blows to your enemy, but you go in for more encounters. No need. No need to let him bleed out. Metaphorically speaking, of course. So yeah, right on, Mr. President, and all that is going on. So there was another, event going on. The GOP primaries, like I mentioned, and there's this and that moment. I just want to focus on one here in the short time we have. It was about Ukraine, okay? The Ukraine war, biggest thing kind of going on in the world, okay? And it's just so weird how it doesn't feel that way. It feels all, maybe it's because we see it through the TikToks and the memes and the podcasts, and it just doesn't really seem like much. Maybe just because it's not yet. It's still a conflict that is maintained in a particular area, right? Over in Eastern Europe, Russia. So it doesn't really affect us, our daily lives. We hear about it, and we may debate and say this and that. But it's so weird. It doesn't really feel like the biggest thing going on right now. And I'm coming to understand a couple of things about Ukraine and the world order in general. And how it was all shaped. Okay, let me show you Ukraine moment here at the GOP primary debate, where they're asked about the support for Ukraine. Quite frankly, they're asked, would you oppose continuing to send weapons and money to Ukraine? So let's watch that moment on the debate stage yesterday in Milwaukee. Here it is, Twitter. Let's go. Fox News, faux news. Okay.
The administration is now asking Congress for $24 billion.
How's the volume, y'all? How's the volume? Let's see if we can boost that. The people are trying to hear.
The administration is now asking Congress for $24 billion more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would
not support it.
Europe needs to step up. I mean, I would have Europe step up and do their job.
Mr. Ramaswamy, but you're saying you would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight. Right now, they're not doing that.
You would not support
and I think
more
we need
funding?
to do, and I think our support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take China and do what we need to do with China.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting.
Okay, right on. So Vivek's the only one that wouldn't do it. And he goes on, he says, whatever. He's saying the right things. Whatever. Okay, so he goes on and he says, whatever. He says the correct thing. And he's the only one. But anyways, you saw, I say the only one because even though Ron DeSantis, you saw him raise his hand a little. He's not saying he's not going to, he doesn't want to send anymore. He's just saying Europe should send more. And basically saying if Europe sends more, yeah, of course we'll send more because ultimately he's not denying how just the war is. He said before too. About killing those Russians. And so he ultimately, halfway rose his hand, doesn't ultimately disagree with the war. And neither does anybody else on that stage except Vivek, whatever. Based Vivek Tryhard, right on, Hake. I find that really funny. Hake said that earlier on his show. I didn't see it like that before, but that's funny. Just pick me, Ramaswamy. What was it that he said? What was it that he said about that was very pick me? He picked me, but right. So based pick me. Anyways, let's go. What I'm saying here. Nobody disagrees with the war and how just it is that to send endless money and all of that. And in contrast, just to finish this off here, in contrast, Trump with Tucker somewhere in the interview. He says, "It's a war that should have never started. It would never have started if he was around, if Trump was around, and specifically that he would end it. He would end it not in support of either side, but he would end it. And it might be unclear what he exactly means. In my opinion, in comments have said before, he would look for a peaceful solution, a solution that would actually end the fighting and stop the killing. As opposed to, yeah, of course, Washington wants peace. They want the war to end. But when they say that, I'm talking about Washington, America, they say that they mean they need to destroy the Russians. They need to fund Ukraine endlessly until they beat the Russians, which means what? It means more dead against a world power like Russia. It's not going to be this little thing. They got allies. It's not going to be this little fight. It's dragging on and on. You've seen the picture I'm painting here? So I'm fascinated by all this because I'm beginning to understand, like I said, a little bit more on the world and how it was shaped. The British Empire just ended ended the British Empire. That birthed the Commonwealth nations around the world. We know them today. They've been called some of the finest, freest nations in the world. As much as we may make fun of the Canadians and the whoever else and the British, some of the finest nations, right? it ended in one generation. It ended so fast. And something that you probably guys all know this. You guys probably all know this. World War II. After World War II, it's just a big decline in the British Empire. 1945, India becomes a free nation, separates from under British rule. Some mark it as the end of the empire. You guys probably know this all. You're like, okay, duh. But I'm not that knowledgeable, and I have heard about all this growing up, but not quite like, I guess, in this way. That the British Empire ended in like many people's lifetimes today, and we're living in the shadow of it. And the world wars and all that. The world wars and the years following it, the end of the British Empire, like, there was a way the world was and a way it became, and that happened like in our recent past. It's kind of, I guess, crazy to ponder on fully, and like we're living in it. Am I making sense here? It's probably dumb to you guys, but I grew up hearing about these wars and all that, like some ancient creation story to our civilization. And in the before four times, there were many bombs. You know what I mean? And creation story is almost appropriate. In all the World War education I had in school and all that, I never came across Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, okay? To understand what I'm talking about, I guess, you got to understand the setting, okay? Britain, the British Empire, colonizing a whole bunch of the world, okay? Like a whole bunch of it. Sure, atrocities and all that, but also, of course, this is also coming out of White History Month, Men's History Month, bringing, their way of life, the free societies to the world. The parts of the world would enjoy a freedom that they never had. Like the Asians. You know what I mean? They don't speak too fondly of Japan's past. And I don't think they are too unhappy about the freedom of the British world order, you know? Can we be a little real here? But yeah, creation story is almost appropriate. It's like, if you don't, like I said, I'm setting the setting here to understand is the world wars happen, the empires, British Empire, it's the world rule, and then the world wars happen, and it's a big change. And then after the World War I, Woodrow Wilson, American president at the time, comes down like Moses. This is how I'm seeing it, right? Kind of relearning this for real in my adulthood. He comes down like Moses with his 14 points for a new world, a new rules for the world, and how to never allow this to ever happen again, to never allow these conflicts, these horrible, great conflicts to ever happen again. Tucker's made the point that British colonies were largely overall benevolent. Yeah. Isn't it Gandhi that said the worst thing the British ever did was leave? So, for all those who are tuning in now, it's 12:02. I started early. We have some Fallen State stuff to get into. So I will be leaving you guys early. I have like maybe 15 more minutes with you guys. For those that are just tuning in, you guys are going to want to just rewind, watch it on your own time, not taking calls. These are just kind of stuff I've been thinking of. Hope you're enjoying it so far. A little bit of my reading of Patrick Buchanan's Unnecessary War. It's called Churchill and Hitler and the Unnecessary War. And the rest of that title is How Britain Lost Its Empire and the West Lost the World. So it's a little bit of my reading on that. For those who've been with us from the beginning, that's what you've been listening to. Rewind and catch the podcast. But I was just talking about how Woodrow Wilson came down like Moses with his 14 points for a new world, okay? And in it, he described the right to self-determination, that all men have a right to self-determination, okay? And Sir Roy Dedman, a statesman, a British statesman at the time that Patrick Buchanan writes about, they both describe how the right to self-determination, what the heck's wrong with me? The right to self-determination was what started the West into its decline, into its what's it called? I believe Patrick Buchanan, he says, I'm paraphrasing it, but it started, it spelled its end. It spelled the end for the West. Why? Because it means no end to the atomization of society, minorities seceding endlessly and in those minorities there will be another secession until an endless atomization destroys the society we're living in, the Western Empire, the Western society. Are we seeing Sir Roy Dedman's fears come to fruition? You know what I mean? Self-determination shaped the modern world. You know, Woodrow Wilson was in his commandments, I guess, you know, not to be so flippant here or too cartoonish. It would be the basis for the sovereignty of all oppressed minorities and the endless balkanization, atomization, right? And that's how the colonies, the former British colonies, then what became self-determination, as many say, historians and whatever, they say what became the rallying cry for self-determination became the cries for liberation and all that. And the beginnings of the map, the world map that we know today, right? You following so far? And so a little bit on this, all this, and bringing it back to Ukraine and the American elections coming up and how these philosophies, the 14 points, the mentalities post-World War I and II basically shaped what Patrick Buchanan calls a cult in Washington. Okay, he calls it a Winston Churchill cult, a Churchill cult. That basically Churchill was such an amazing statesman. He should be an example. And he has a whole thing on that, and you can check it out. You know, we don't have that kind of time. But basically, to be brief, that everything past that time, 1938, World War II, that every new challenge to U.S. power in the world became another 1938. And there's all these examples, all sorts, if we had all the more time to get into it. But one you might remember in recent history is Bush. I was young. George Bush. It's funny when I look him up, though. It could very well be Bush really did see himself as a Winston Churchill of today's time. The media people in the media sure compared him as such. Is that good English? The media compared him like that, as a modern Winston Churchill, liberating the Iraqi people in a cakewalk war that took them 100 hours to win. They say calling it a just war to liberate the Iraqis. Are they doing so hot today? Did Western Churchill freedom, anti-Hitler freedom, stop the oppressive dictatorships popping up in that region that would soon become the next Hitler? You know, at the time the media was calling Bush a Churchill-like figure. Figures like Saddam Hussein and others would be demonized as the new Hitler. And you'd see this in various examples that we could, you know, if we had more time, we'd get into. And so you see that continues with, that same line continues today. Ukraine, Putin, the new Hitler. Zelensky, the new Churchill. Check this out. In fact, like I just showed you, I showed you George Bush being compared to Winston Churchill. It's funny. I guess I totally miss all this stuff, but now in context, in what I'm, I guess, learning, and I say that in quotations because it's all like what? It's all the past and learning books and, I think you'd be better equipped to deal with the world today, right now, with what when you just do a little self-discovery, when you understand the evil in yourself. But that same understanding lets you understand a little bit of what we're talking about. And it's funny to see this now in this context with everything I've said. George W. Bush calls Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky the Winston Churchill of our time. Is it just like folly and lofty self-identities and lofty self-ideals, thinking that they're saving all these people when there's all this death going on? Was that the same mentality during the World Wars? Just two sides fighting? Some people say it was actually the same side fighting itself. I've heard the World Wars recently described as the West's Great Civil War, Patrick Buchanan. And I never saw it like that. Europe fighting itself. Once great Christian nations dealing themselves killing blows. Just kind of stuff I've been thinking about today. I'm no expert, but I hope you find some of this interesting in this little bit of time. You might go and look it up yourself. The World Wars. I mean, the British Empire didn't even end that long ago. I find this fascinating a little bit in a what I should have learned in school type of way. You know what I mean? So, where was I? George Bush calls Ukraine President Zelensky this was like a while ago, I guess. When was this? The 2022, May, when George Bush did that. So, and then you kind of start maybe understanding a little bit more on the massive hate against Trump, not wanting to go along with this kind of mentality. You could almost see it as psychopathic, self-destructive. Patrick Buchanan asks, were the world wars really necessary wars, right? They say they were great, they were just good wars, but I don't personally know. I grew up being told in school that World War I was because they assassinated Franz Ferdinand. You ever hear that in school? That's what I grew up hearing. And that's really how it was presented to me, or maybe my boy mind, or I wasn't even just boy. Come on, I was a little older when we heard this too. It was kind of over so many years in school. Well, how did World War I start? Well, they assassinated Franz Ferdinand, the Duke, who was like an important statesman of somewhere. And that brought in this ally and that ally and that ally, and it just became a big old fight. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated, and that brought in, and so that was an attack, and so that brought in the allies of someone, and then the other allies got in, and then it just got out of control. Oopsies. Hey, we all signed an allied pact, and we all just have to fight. Them's the rules, boss. Read the paper. Them's the rules. It says we got to fight now. And I always thought that was so weird. Growing up, it didn't quite make sense. Wait, so they killed one guy, and so because them's the rules, boss, 8 million died, 22 million died, 8 million fought and died, 22 maimed, 25 million civilians, landscapes destroyed, all to have a second world war and then kill tens of millions more, right? All of this is, some of this is like my own thoughts here this morning with you guys today, shortly here. But again, like I said, it's a bit of my reading from Patrick Buchanan's book, Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War. I'll be doing more on this and more stuff that you might find interesting, and calls and all that. We get into so much more. I think the rest of this week, definitely some of it tomorrow. We also got a lot of fun stuff to get into tomorrow. We got a flight. That's Anchor Baby Airlines on the same channel, of course, where you're watching me right now. That's when we do the flights on Fridays, that'll be 4 p.m. tomorrow. I saw your super chats. Let me run these super chats. I do get a little lost, get a little absorbed sometimes, but I should really be paying attention. You guys gave me some super chats. Let me read these quick before I get out of here. We got this Fallen State taping to get to. But what else did I want to just close off here? I guess that's all. That's really all the time we have. So if there's any other points, too bad, so sad for me. We'll get into more of this in the future. I have some amazing super chats from all of you. Thank you. I want to go fast with the super chat. Gives me the anchor baby emojis. Thank you for that. Hake super chat says, Trump made a great point about Jimmy Carter giving up Panama Canal for $1. Now China controls it. Major money. So true. That was an awesome little moment in the interview with Tucker Carlson. Check it out. Of Aaron C. with a back-to-back super chat says, what's it going to take to end you and your clique's Trump worship? Y'all should know better. Let's take the baseness up a notch. Of Aaron C. Appreciate your super chat. If maybe your baseness just went down a notch, where's your Trump, not saying we can't have our criticisms, but what's your replacement? Where's your guy? So I put Trump on the table. Where's your guy? Show me your guy. And we'll see who wins. Of Aaron C. with the back-to-back, though, says, bell curve covers all this ish, Maine. Oh, that was from yesterday. My bad. Let me see, make sure I didn't miss any Rumble rants here. Hake report with the Rumble rant. What the heck? 35,000 men we lost to the mosquito malaria building the Panama Canal. Christian, quote unquote, Jimmy Carter sold it for $1. Not thinking there, buddy. All right, guys. I hope I didn't miss any more super chats or anything there. We'll be sure to pick this up and much more. Your calls and more fun stuff. We got a nice show tomorrow. Don't miss it. We got the refunds everybody bought a ticket last Friday. We got a nice one for tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow for Nick's Stream, Anchor Baby Airlines flight, 4 p.m. It's been a pleasure. You guys wondering what's going on? It's ending early. We got Fallen State taping. I started this show early. Back it up. I was just kind of thinking about some stuff today. Hope you found it interesting. So out of time, guys. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. We got some Fallen State tomorrow, of course. Hake Report and JLP show, Monday through Friday. Duh. All right, y'all. Again, as always, it's a pleasure. Catch you guys tomorrow. And yeah, bye-bye.